Hello everyone. Today we shall learn about antiviral therapies and SARS coronavirus 2. To start with, let's ponder about evolution and evolutionary benefits of the viruses. From the point of view of human viruses, they can thrive mainly inside the human body. They transmit to others through body fluids, contact, or through vectors. So which viruses are likely to be more successful? Should they be more virulent and kill their host, or be less virulent and survive in the host for long? The latter seems ideal. The Ebola virus, which kills the host, doesn't have a place to live and thrive. Hence, Ebola is not as rampant as hepatitis C or rhinoviruses. While rhinoviruses live and trouble you every season, you know their presence, but you do not worry about them. In case of hepatitis C, you do not know about their presence, but factually you should worry about them. They damage our liver slowly and silently. Look at two evolutionary advantages of SARS coronavirus 2. Its ability to infect while being asymptomatic and living with younger and healthy population without troubling them. The disadvantage it has is it killed too many people too fast and caught the attention of the world. The most efficient and safest known method to control the viruses is immunization through vaccines. We will be talking about it later. The self-limiting nature of viruses has led to looking at them more benevolently compared to bacteria. As you all know, mumps, measles, hepatitis A, chickenpox, rhinoviruses that cause you cold, or influenza virus troubles you for a short while and disappear. The antiviral therapy is attempted mainly towards HIV, hepatitis, herpes and influenza viruses. The mechanisms of action of all antivirals can fall under 5 groups depending on the mode of entry and replication of viruses inside our cells. This will also give you an idea why antivirals can be toxic to our own cells. While inhibiting the virus, you may be meddling with the cell functions of your own cell. Antiviral drug basically refers to stopping any part of its life cycle inside our body. Roughly speaking, can we stop it at entering the cell? Can we stop it from uncoating? Can we stop it from creating a mRNA which will code its proteins? Or can we stop it from creating proteins? And lastly, can we stop its virions escaping the cells? When we deal with retroviruses, we may target 2 of other proteins, reverse transcriptase and integrase. However, here is a small good news I wish to tell you. The 2-drug treatment for hepatitis C is so effective that it can cure the disease as well as the therapy has very minimal side effects. So that brings us the hope that we can create antiviral therapies without devastating side effects. Coming to the antiviral therapies and examples, let's start with an analogy of a thief to understand the stages of viral replication and approaches to stop the viral replication. A thief needs to either break the door or make a copy of the key to open the door of a house. In viral terms, it is either by fusing with the cell membrane or binding to a receptor. HIV uses both these techniques. It binds to CCR5, hence a CCR5 inhibitor can stop entry of HIV into a cell. Similarly, HIV can be stopped from fusing with the cell wall by fusion inhibitors like enfuvirtide. Most of the viruses need multiple drugs working at different levels to be killed. After gaining the entry inside the cell, the thief will open his tools from his apparel pockets as well as the toolboxes. This can be equated to uncoating of the membrane by the virus. Amantadine was used to prevent influenza from uncoating. However, its use is very limited now. Once the thief has gained confidence, he will try to facilitate more of theirs to be in by making a phone call to his friends. This can be equated to replication of viruses. You have already heard about an enzyme called reverse transcriptase in case of HIV. Reverse transcriptase inhibitors will stop HIV viruses from creating DNA from their RNA. Similarly, the enzyme integrase integrates the viral genetic material with the DNA of human cell. So, integrase inhibitor can effectively treat HIV. Acyclovir, which is used in herpes, also inhibits replication. The next important aim of the thief is to create a bundle of necessary items, pack them and keep them ready. This can be equated to protein synthesis inside the cell. Very interestingly, interferons, which are familiar to you, can inhibit the very viral genetic material from synthesizing necessary proteins. As a bonus, these interferons leak out of the cells and alert neighboring cells through signaling and preparing them to fight with the viruses. Hence, interferons are a very important part of antiviral treatment. In hepatitis C, the virus uses protease to generate proteins. The protease inhibitors like boceprevir are successfully used in treating hepatitis C. Remdesivir, a potential drug for COVID disease, actually inhibits transcription by substituting the nucleotides with itself. Thus, faulty genetic material created through this process doesn't lead to any copies of the viral protein. Lastly, every thief wants to escape the house with all of his friends. Similarly, viruses want to spread through virions after using the energy of the cells and proteins of the cell to replicate. Neuraminidase inhibitors are such drugs which stop the viruses from escaping the cell. We have been exploring whether any plant molecules could inhibit SARS coronavirus 2. The approach is multi-pronged but focused on two areas. Since spike glycoprotein is like the key the virus uses to enter the human cell, we could competitively bind to this protein on the virus and hypothetically prevent the virus from entering the human cell. We have promising molecules in our in silico, computer-aided drug design studies, and we wish to take it forward. Similarly, we think our molecules are as good and maybe better than remdesivir in inhibiting RDRP protein, which is responsible for translation of genetic material of the virus. We are happy that we were well prepared with infrastructure, manpower, and tools to quickly do these trials on plant-based molecules. Vaccination, on the other hand, is the most effective preventive therapy available as of now. There are two very devastating viruses which have been eradicated from communities. They are smallpox and polio. However, we cannot make vaccines for all viruses since they mutate soon and become immune to antibodies generated by the vaccine. Vaccines can be understood in three parts. What makes the antigen, which is the core of the vaccine, what are adjuvants which are used to make vaccine effective and let their effects last longer, and lastly the route of administration. Vaccines are antigens which provoke antibodies to protect against the disease. Vaccines can contain the whole virus, of course in subdued form or attenuated, or the virus which is killed, only that part of the viral protein which can evoke immune response, or they can contain only a toxin from the virus. Latest technologies are trying to grow viral protein in other organisms and using them in vaccine. Live attenuated vaccines give strong immunity but should be avoided in an immunocompromised person. Because it's a live vaccine, they need to be stored and transported in refrigerators. Examples are chickenpox, smallpox, measles, mumps, rubella, rotavirus and yellow fever. Inactivated or killed don't give as strong an immunity as live vaccines and need booster doses. Examples are polio, rabies, hepatitis A, flu. Some vaccines are made from subunit or a part of the infectious agent. The parts used are protein, polysaccharide, DNA or weakened toxin. These vaccines give strong immunity but need booster doses. They are safe as only part of the infectious agents are used. Examples are shingles, hepatitis B, HPV, pertussis, Haemophilus influenzae, pneumococcus and meningococcus. Sometimes vaccine is made from the toxin of the infectious agent and not a part or whole infectious agent. Examples are toxoid vaccines against tetanus and diphtheria. Future trends in vaccines are trying to reduce the need for multiple doses, improve manufacturing processes, and improve the stability for easier transport and storage. They're also making recombinant DNA vaccines, wherein a piece of DNA from the infectious agent is grown in vector-like E. coli or as a plasmid. Examples are hepatitis B vaccine. Use of adjuvants. These vaccines have two components, the antigen and the adjuvants, which activate the immune cells. Proteins, lipids, and polymers are being tested to potentiate the effects of vaccine. Certain biomaterials directly activate immune pathways and serve as both the carrier and the adjuvant. New biomaterials can deliver adjuvants which lengthen the effectiveness. Use of different delivery routes like nasal spray or skin patches for flu. A patch delivers the vaccine into the skin. Patches don't need refrigeration and can be applied at home. Also, therapeutic vaccines are being developed. Examples are, for cancer, modified T cells with nanoparticles for destroying cancerous cells. For autoimmune diseases such as multiple sclerosis, use of polymer particles to deactivate malfunctioning immune cells. And also for prevention of organ rejection after transplant, use of immunosuppressive vaccines which inhibit the immune response, or use of immunomodulators to weaken the immune system. That's about the effort by scientists on trying to combat the viruses through vaccines and drugs. The second part of the lecture series on virus ends here. The next part will explain immunity, immune responses and viruses. Thank you.